In August of 2025, one of the most trusted names in American ladders quietly recalled more than 120,000 of its products. Every single one of them was made in China, and 14 injuries had already been reported. Why is the ladder that holds your entire body weight 30 feet off the ground now being built in a country most buyers have never set foot in? And why did the company whose name is practically a synonym for the word ladder move the heart of its manufacturing across the border into Mexico? Today, we are going to peel the country of origin sticker off the ladder industry and show you exactly what happened to American manufacturing. And by the end, you will know the only 4 ladder brands still genuinely built in the United States. If you walk into any big box hardware store today, you might think you are looking at a healthy competitive market. You see Werner in its familiar blue. You see Louisville. You see Gorilla ladders stacked by the entrance, Little Giant with its folding hinges, and a whole wall of Costco step stools. Dozens of options, dozens of names. It feels like choice. It is not. Behind those labels is a story of consolidation, private equity ownership, and a slow, deliberate exit from American factories. The biggest name of them all, Werner, is no longer the family manufacturing company that built its reputation on American steel and American labor. After a bankruptcy in 2006, Werner passed through the hands of financial owners, and today it operates under a private equity firm and a corporate parent renamed in 2024. Its ladders are not primarily built in the United States anymore. The bulk of Werner's production moved to a sprawling factory complex in Juarez, Mexico, and a growing share of its specialty products now come from China. Here is the part that should bother you. A ladder is not a couch or a coffee maker. It is a life safety device. It is the one product in your garage that, if it fails, can put you in a wheelchair or a coffin. And the industry that builds it has spent the last 20 years chasing the lowest possible labor cost, one factory closure at a time. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to the moment the biggest name in the business decided that American workers were simply too expensive. For most of the 20th century, Werner was an American manufacturing success story. The company dominated the ladder aisle by building aluminum and fiberglass ladders here in the United States, including major operations in Pennsylvania. If you climbed a ladder on an American job site in the 1980s or 90s, there is a very good chance it came off a Werner line staffed by American hands. Then came the pressure that reshaped so much of American industry: foreign competition, big box price wars, and the relentless demand to cut costs. Beginning around 2003 and 2004, Werner started shifting production south to Juarez, Mexico, where labor cost a fraction of what it did at home. The math was simple and brutal. A ladder is heavy, repetitive, labor-intensive work, and every dollar saved on wages dropped straight to the bottom line. Then in 2006, Werner filed for bankruptcy protection. The company that emerged was no longer steered by ladder people. It was steered by financial owners, the kind whose entire business model is buying a company, squeezing out costs, and maximizing the return. And there is no faster way to squeeze costs on a heavy, low-margin product than to move it to a cheaper country. The closures kept coming. In 2018, Werner shut down a long-running plant in Louisville, Kentucky, and the jobs went with it. By the 2020s, the Werner name, one of the most recognizable in all of American hardware, had become a brand stamped, mostly made in Mexico, sitting on the shelf right next to house brands, sourced out of China. This is the private equity playbook applied to a century-old trade. You buy a trusted American name. You keep the logo, the blue color, the familiar font, and you quietly move the actual work to wherever it is cheapest, betting that the customer will never once flip the ladder over to read the sticker. The name stays American. The manufacturing does not, but the offshoring is only half the story. Because when you take a life safety product and hand it to the lowest bidder, sooner or later, something breaks. And in 2025, something did. In August of 2025, the Consumer Product Safety Commission announced a recall of Werner Multi-Max Pro multi-position ladders, more than 122,000 units. The problem was a hinge and locking mechanism that could fail while a person was standing on it, causing the ladder to collapse underneath them. By the time the recall was issued, the company had already received reports of 14 injuries, and every one of those recalled ladders had been manufactured in China. Sit with that for a moment. This was not a cosmetic defect. This was a structural failure in the exact component that is supposed to lock the ladder rigid while a human being stands on it at height. Those failures were happening before the recall paperwork ever caught up to the problem. Now recalls happen. Even the best manufacturers issue them. But this is where the stakes of this particular product become impossible to ignore, because a ladder failure is not an inconvenience, it is a fall. According to the Centers for Disease Control, ladder-related injuries send more than 160,000 Americans to the emergency room in a typical year. Hundreds of those falls are fatal. The Bureau of Labor Statistics counts falls from ladders among the leading causes of preventable workplace death year after year after year. This is the one purchase in your home improvement cart where cutting a corner on quality can literally cost you your life. And here is where it gets worse, because the industry has learned to exploit the one thing you trust most, the label. There is a legal distinction that most shoppers have never heard of, and the manufacturers are counting on that. Under the rules of the Federal Trade Commission, a product can only say, "Made in America," if all, or virtually all, of it is actually made here. But there is a softer phrase that sounds almost identical to the ear, "Assembled in America." That phrase can legally be stamped on a ladder whose parts were forged, extruded, and shipped in from overseas, and then merely bolted together on American soil at the very last step. To a shopper glancing at the box, "Assembled in America" reads as American-made. Legally, it can mean almost the opposite. The flag on the packaging is doing marketing work, not manufacturing work. So you cannot trust the color of the box. You cannot trust the familiar name. And increasingly, you cannot even trust the word American printed right there on the label. Meanwhile, the genuine American ladder makers, the ones who never left, have been dying off one by one. Consider the Michigan Ladder Company. It had been building ladders in Ypsilanti, Michigan since the early 1900s. It survived the Great Depression. It survived 2 world wars. It survived a century of foreign competition and changing tastes. And then, in 2021, it closed. One of the oldest ladder manufacturers in the entire country, gone. Another casualty of an industry that decided cheap and imported would always beat built to last. Even Louisville Ladder, one of the great American names in the business, moved a large share of its own production to Mexico. The pattern is everywhere you look. The heritage brands either got bought, got offshored, or got buried. What is left on the big box shelf is more and more a collection of imported products wearing American-sounding names. So if the biggest brand builds in Mexico and China, if the oldest names are closing their doors, and if the label itself is designed to mislead you, then the question becomes almost desperate. Is there anyone left? Is there a single ladder you can still buy that is genuinely built by American hands, out of American materials, in an American factory? The answer is yes, but the list is short. In fact, when you strip away the marketing, the assembled here loopholes, and the imported budget lines hiding under domestic brand names, you are left with only 4 ladder brands you can still count on. And most people have never heard of half of them. So stop shopping like a consumer and start thinking like an auditor. Here are the 4 ladder brands still genuinely made in America and exactly what to look for. The first is the Bauer Corporation, based in Wooster, Ohio. Bauer builds fiberglass ladders here in the United States, the kind favored by electricians and tradespeople who need a non-conductive ladder they can trust with their lives around live wires. Bauer is not a big box brand you will trip over at the front of the store. You often have to seek it out through industrial and electrical suppliers. And that is exactly why it survived. It built its reputation with professionals who inspect what they buy. The second is Little Giant Ladder Systems, out of Springville, Utah. Little Giant is best known for its heavy-duty, multi-position ladders, and it still manufactures a significant portion of its line right there in Utah. But here is the critical catch, and it is the whole lesson of this video in a single sentence. Little Giant also sells imported models under the very same brand name, so the brand alone is not enough. You have to check the specific model and the country of origin stamp before you hand over your money. The third is Louisville Ladder. Yes, the same company that moved much of its volume to Mexico still builds select lines, particularly certain fiberglass ladders, here in the United States, and the same trap applies. A Louisville ladder can be American-built or imported depending entirely on which model you pick up, so the number stamped on the rail matters far more than the name on the label. The fourth is the Alaco Ladder Company of Chino, California. Alaco is a specialist. It builds aluminum ladders, including architectural and library-style ladders, right there in California, and it has built its entire identity around domestic craftsmanship instead of big box volume. It is the kind of small, focused manufacturer that the consolidation wave somehow never managed to swallow. And if you need a heavy industrial rolling ladder, the kind used in warehouses and factories, there are still American builders like Cotterman, Ballymore, and Triarch holding the line domestically as well. Now here is how you actually protect yourself, because a brand name is simply not enough anymore. Before you buy any ladder, check the side rails for the country of origin marking. Read the exact words. Made in America is the real thing. Assembled in America is a warning sign. Look up the specific model number, not just the brand, because the same name can sit on both a domestic ladder and an imported one, and be willing to buy from an industrial or electrical supplier instead of the big box store, because that is often exactly where the genuine American product is hiding. You will probably pay a little more. American labor and American steel cost more, and there is no pretending otherwise. But this is the one purchase where paying more is not vanity. It is the difference between a tool that locks solid under your full weight and one that ends up in a recall notice after 14 people have already been hurt. You are not buying a decoration. You are buying the one thing that decides whether you come back down the way you went up. The truth is that the era when American made was the default, the baseline you never even had to think about, is over. The biggest names in this business are counting on the familiar blue and the American-sounding name to do the work that American factories used to do. But now you know better. You know that 4 names still hold the line, and you know exactly how to read the label that tells the real story. So the next time you reach for a ladder, do not trust the flag on the box. Trust the stamp on the rail. Check the model, check the country, and never gamble your life on the cheapest option in the aisle. If this opened your eyes, hit subscribe for more stories the big brands would rather you never heard.